We're smarter than this.
This is Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
Oh,
we're back.
That's what
we missed a week.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, life.
But we were busy watching
Well, we had
movies.
to hold this one back because it's all about Mission Impossible, and then we'd seen it
By
3
this
times
point-
before it actually released in theaters.
Y'all had.
Well, yeah, you'd only seen it twice, and we'd had a 48-hour conversation in direct messages, not like a Twitter thread, but like a private DM conversation.
He DM'd us
initiated
first.
by McHugh. That's what they people are calling him.
Christopher McQuarrie.
Christopher McQuarrie.
The
All
brains
about-
behind the best Mission Impossible movies.
Absolutely. And it was all about our theory from Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning.
He
Part
put
1.
a lot of doubt in our minds as to if it's real or not.
No, I don't think he didn't put any doubt in my mind.
Really? Okay.
As far, and we'll interact and talk all about that up after a little bit of a. Hey, by the way, the guys from Reverend and the Reprobate are getting ready to pop on and tell you all about their show. But what you need to know is that their episode that they released last week was with Michael Uslan.
Cool dude.
The man behind the modern superhero movie. And he tells the story of how he got into comics, how he got mentored by Stan Lee, how he got the rights for Batman, all of that. It is a fascinating interview. So after you finish listening to us, click on the link below and check it out. But before we get into the show, here's a little bit more from Reverend and the Reprobate. This is Tatooine Sons.
We are the Reverend and the Reprobate, just two best buds interviewing people we have no business talking to. I'm Lucas Pinkard.
I'm Dan Gibson. These aren't tears on my face.
Every Thursday, we interview somebody else from our favorite fandoms and yours. You can check those interviews out on the Christian Nerd HQ Network. You can find us on YouTube at RevRep Podcast at ReverendRep.com. And if you can't remember our name, just go to BaconOffice.com. It's way easier to find. New episodes every Thursday. Thank you guys for supporting Christian Nerd HQ, and check out the Reverend and the Reprobate.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody listen to it.
I would love that. He was so much fun to interview. He was such a cool dude.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before we broke in, but Reverend and the Reprobate interviewed Michael Uslan, but they opened their entire episode talking about we were put in contact with you and introduced to you and everything through Tatooine Sons, and Mike, and that's Nate, BB Nate interviewed Michael Uslan about a year and a half ago after the Batman movie.
Has it really been that long?
It's been that long. Oh my gosh.
Wow. I think that
was just like yesterday.
You should interview him again. I think we should reach out.
I'd love to.
And get Michael back on, and you should talk with him about restoring the dignity to Batman and the movement. I know you talked a little bit about that on the previous interview that you did with him, but really talk about the story of him getting, after you've listened to that episode, come back and let's talk about how you can get him on, because I think it'd be a fascinating conversation. He talks about it's so good. So anyway,
I'm gonna have to, but that's a long episode.
It's an hour and 45 minutes, and it's worth every second of it. It talks about so many cool things. So check it out, Reverend and the Reprobate. It's in the link below, in the show notes, so check it out. And welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
That's who we are.
Us.
Yeah, that's us again.
We believe that pop culture is the mythology. Guess what? Guess what Michael Uslan talks about?
What?
Literally, he got his start in the comics world. Like, he was a super fan, had 30,000 comics in his garage.
Wow.
All of this kind of stuff growing up. His dad couldn't even get his car in the garage because of all the comics that he had. But he got his start by being the first, I think he may have mentioned this on the show, but being the first official teacher of an accredited university course on comic books. And he pitched that to the university and they shot him down. And he was dealing with a mythology professor. And he talks about how mythology is... The comic books are mythology with that, and he made the argument, and so it's in that episode. But anyway, he's talking. This is why you got to interview him again. Anyway, we believe pop culture is the mythology of this generation. That there is a story; it is written on our souls, and that these myths speak to that story, and that is why we talk about Batman and Star Wars, and we've talked about Indiana Jones recently, and today we're talking about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning because it's pop culture and it has got a mythology tied into it now. And it was a lot of fun. So,
it was a lot of fun.
I haven't said this in a long time, but we are the only fan podcast to name a canon Star Wars creature and to be endorsed by the writer-director of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. I don't know why I took that out of the opening.
I don't know.
So
it's a pretty cool thing to be able to say we've done.
Yeah.
You good there, Nate?
I'm okay.
He's got a little cough.
Lungs.
He tends to get weak lungs.
I do.
And when they get sick, they don't go away.
You need to do some cardio.
But you're feeling okay.
I'm feeling better a little bit every day, but it hurts to talk.
Maybe we need to get you an inhaler.
I have one.
You have it? Have you used it?
I'm using it.
Okay. All right. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's talk Mission Impossible. We've seen it. BB, Nate, and I have seen it 3 times. We've got a long story to explain all that. Nate, or Sam,
3 times in 3 days.
3 nights before it actually released in the theaters.
Before it actually
Sunday, Monday,
released in
Tuesday.
the
It released Wednesday officially. So, but we saw it anyway. Sam, you've seen it twice. All right, let's get your initial reactions to the movie. I'm going to have you go first, BB Nate, because I already know what Sam's is, and then we'll come back to mine.
I thought you already knew him.
I do too, but that's why I'm doing it.
I really loved this movie. It, for a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, never felt slow any of the 3 times I've watched it. It was great. The writing was a lot of fun. It was good. The acting was really good. And the action was really good. The car chase was a lot of fun. And it lasted a long time.
It's like 25 minutes.
25-minute car chase. The train scene at the end is one of the most intense we've gotten in Mission Impossible. Just jumping from car to car. It was a lot of fun. But overall, fantastic Mission Impossible movie. Added more world building that we had not seen before in this series, and I can't wait to see what the second part is. And if it's the end of Ethan Hunt, I don't think it will be, but we'll see.
Your favorite Mission Impossible so far? What going into this?
Going into it was Fallout, and Fallout's
which is
really
6,
good.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Fallout is really
Fallout
good.
is really good. We thought when we saw Fallout originally that was the end of the series. It felt like it was.
It did.
Like tying into stuff from every single movie. There was nods to it. It felt like it was.
And now we're tying into Kittredge and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
so would you put this ahead of Fallout or on par with Fallout or behind Fallout?
I'd have to put it on par.
On
'Cause
par.
Fallout's just
Okay.
so good, and I feel like more watches of this will help because I've seen Fallout a lot.
Yeah.
So-
Like how many times do you think you've seen Fallout? 10 times?
Maybe close to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different opinion. Is it?
He was grumpy when he watched.
I wasn't
these, by
grumpy.
the way.
No, I wasn't.
I'm kidding.
I really went into it with a very open mind, very excited for it. And I'm not gonna say it was bad. It was a very good movie. It just it didn't feel as big as Fallout. I think it suffered for me at least a little bit. It suffered from the Infinity War effect to me a bit. I'm like, okay, this is a part 1. We know Ethan's going to make it out. We know that the story's not going to be over. And I think that dampened it a bit. And to me personally, were the stunts crazy? Absolutely. But I feel like they tipped their hand a little bit too much within the trailers and things.
They did show, the entire first look we got of Mission Impossible 7 was the preview in IMAX where they show the entire
jump,
the filming of the motorcycle jump.
Yeah, and in some ways that made it more intense, knowing that he's actually doing it. But we knew that was coming. We knew the train thing was coming because they use that in trailers and stuff. So it felt, in a way, almost like I don't want to say a step down, but it didn't feel as big as Fallout. I mean, the end of this movie, you had Ethan Hunt on a train hunting for a key.
Hunting, huh?
And in Fallout, you had Ethan Hunt hijacking a helicopter, chasing another helicopter while getting shot at, while simultaneously 2 nukes are about to go off, and Benji's getting choked out and all that. So
I get this, but you're phrasing Fallout in a way where it sounds like it was more intense than Dead Reckoning.
Because
I can phrase it the same way for Dead Reckoning. You have Ethan Hunt trying to get on a train from slow curve, missing the train because the brakes were stopped and it was accelerating at full speed, having to then, while Grace is having a meeting with the buyer, which we find out is Kittredge, and this was her first mission, then he has to go, drive up, get on a cliff, jump off the cliff, parachute onto the train, which he parachutes into the train, and then not only that, but then afterwards, he climbs on top of the train, has an entire fight scene on a real train going 60 miles an hour that they built for this movie. And after all of that, has to have that whole ending train sequence where he's going up the cars. And then after that, parachutes out from the train.
See, you're just describing it in more detail. I wasn't
exactly
describing it in more detail. I was just describing what was going on.
That's exactly what you were doing.
All right.
So let him share how he what he thinks about the movie, though. We're not arguing it.
No, I'm just saying.
So.
That's just my thought. I feel like, in a way, it was a step down from Fallout. Now, will Part 2 maybe make Part 1 better, like what Endgame did with Infinity War? It's very possible. But for me, it didn't really hit as hard as the previous installments in the franchise. So.
Okay, so I think that the difference is you were going into Mission Impossible for big moments, and it had big moments, right? Big battles, car chase, intense moments, and things like that. But that's what you associate with Mission Impossible, and that's what you want to go into the movie for.
Yeah, I mean, now it's obviously packaged in a better way. You can get those same things from
absolutely
from Fast and Furious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fast and Furious. I expect a different caliber from Mission Impossible, but it felt like those big moments weren't as big in this movie for me.
But Nate, you go into these movies, especially. I mean, you're a story guy, like 100%.
So I'm here for Ethan Hunt and Benji and Luther, and
so that's the difference.
All of their stories and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. I thought this was the best Mission Impossible so far.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that it was, for me, it had all of those big moments that you're talking about, Sam, but it also had a really, really different story than we've had in previous Mission Impossibles. They tried to do this with and this is a Christopher McQuarrie thing, right? So he takes over helping to finish and rewrite
Ghost Protocol.
Isn't it
4?
No, he wrote 4. I thought he wrote 4.
He wrote 5.
No, he
6.
worked on.
He didn't direct 4 though.
Okay. He just worked on it.
He just worked on it.
Which is that the one that ends with the Syndicate?
With it being revealed, yes.
Yeah.
Right at the very end is where the Syndicate is mentioned.
That's Ghost Protocol.
Okay, that's right. So he helps end that, writing it, and in it he teases at the final scene with Ethan Hunt. He gets his new mission and it talks about the Syndicate, right? And so that's a Christopher McQuarrie thing for sure, right? And so then they bring in the Syndicate and everything that's going on with the Syndicate in 5, which is Ghost Protocol, correct?
5 is Rogue Nation.
Rogue Nation. Okay. See, excuse me. I don't remember all this stuff, but anyway, Rogue Nation, and that's with that villain, and I can't remember his name, but that guy.
Yeah, I don't remember the name either.
Right?
Lane.
And then they world
Solomon
build
Lane, yes.
from that. Solomon Lane, you're right. They world build with that into Fallout and continue that world building.
With John Lark.
They bring in the John Lark stuff. They bring in the White Widow, which we find out is the daughter. And her brother, of course, is in it, but the daughter of Max, which goes all the way back to the first movie. And
which ties
we bring in Ethan's wife, former wife. Is it Julia?
Julia, I think so.
Julia, I think
Sounds
that's right. Yeah, Julia. They bring her in, make her a major character, major ending in the third act with this. So they're more world building in Fallout, right? This one, though, takes the world building to a whole new level. The way I described it, I did a review on Letterboxd. I did a review on Rotten Tomatoes for it. And the way I described it was, it feels just like Mission Impossible. It has all the big stunts, all the things that you look for in Mission Impossible. But this one builds the world in a very different way, to where I want to know more about this world, not just watch another Mission
It
Impossible.
felt like what John Wick.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
John Wick 2.
Yeah.
Which I can't
John
wait
Wick
for the
1
Continental series. Comes out in a couple months. So I'm very excited.
John Wick 1 was the, cool big fights and all that. John Wick 2 was like, now let's give it a good story, a deeper lore.
Right. And that's with the, the story about choice. We'll talk a lot about choices towards the end of this conversation today. But, the idea of choice, the idea of Ethan having been some type of a criminal, some type of basically was given one of two choices: go to prison for the rest of your life, I think was basically the choice, or you become an agent, right?
3 choices.
Or what was the other? Be on the run for the rest of your life?
Jail, death, or becoming an IMF agent.
Right. And so you see that, and then you find out that same choice is the choice that Benji had, the choice that Luther had, that everyone that's in the Impossible Mission Force has that. You've got this crazy moment early on where there's this group of the clandestine services all meeting to try to deal with this the entity. And the idea of the entity, and all of a sudden Kittredge shows up and he starts talking about the Impossible Mission Force, and everybody there knows about it except for the National Security Advisor who's leading the meeting.
Right.
Has never heard of the Impossible Mission Force. And the rest of the clandestine service people are like, you can't talk about this. Stop it. You can't do this. And so now that builds the world. Right? And there's so much to it. But I think the big thing was what we walked away from when we were in the parking lot, right? So we're in the parking lot in Pensacola, getting ready to we're leaving, we're pulling the car out, we're doing what we do when we finish a movie like this, just stream of consciousness, getting our stuff out,
right? Yes,
right. And suddenly,
after we get in the car, though, because we don't want to spoil it for other people.
We're not going to do that. But so we're in the car and we're doing this in the parking lot, driving out, and it just hits us. The question that bugged me the whole movie was, why is Ethan so quick to become loyal to Grace?
Mm-hmm.
And there's an Ethan element to that, but then there's like, this is just
something deeper.
Like there's something bigger, and it clicks. And I think it was me or you.
I said that Marie was Grace's mother. I'm like, that has to be it.
That's right. That's
it. And then you were like, wait a minute.
That's right. Nathan says Marie has to be Grace's mother, and then it clicks. I'm like, that Ethan is the father.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start walking through this. You okay, buddy?
I'm good.
You need some more water?
No, water doesn't help.
For you to take a
no,
break?
we're good.
I'm serious.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. All right. We're driving home 45 minutes, right? And coming up with all of the connections and all of the reasons that this makes sense. Now, the thing that we had to our advantage was we were going to the Sunday afternoon Walmart Plus screening, which
don't have.
Don't get our secret. We don't want AMC to change that in the future. So anyway, So we go. But we had already gotten tickets to see it in IMAX. We weren't seeing it at IMAX the first time. We got tickets to go back on Monday night and see it in IMAX. So that was our original plan, right? Mm-hmm. And so,
because you wanted those cool pins and prints.
Oh, it was cool. Awesome. So, cool. Speaking of the poster, we got a drawing. So, if you're listening to this on Tuesday by midnight tonight, if you find that post, it's pinned to the top of our Twitter wall. Retweet the post, like the post, and follow us if you aren't already following us to get into the contest. We've got 2 of them we're giving away, so you got 2 chances there.
Cool.
And then the pin lasts a week. So if you're not listening to this on Tuesday, and you're listening to it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or whatever, go back. It'll be pinned to the top of the wall, starting on Wednesday. And you do the same thing: like, retweet, follow, and you could get into that. We're giving one of those MIF pins away. So that'll end Tuesday the next week. MIF.
Mission Impossible Force.
MIF. Impossible Mission Fest. So
IMF.
So you said Mission Impossible Force, and then you said IMF.
You said MIF.
He was explaining what that
anyway,
what your
thought process was.
So the next night, we go and we're bringing Christy, my wife, their mom, right? So just everybody's on the same page, right? So we're bringing her. We don't tell her about any of this.
No,
right?
None of the theory.
We don't want to.
But we plan, like, we are watching for any hole in our theory at all. When we're watching it the second viewing, I'll go to you, Sam, since you haven't talked much this episode. You need to talk. You know, it's Tatooine Sun, not Sun.
With a Z, or what was that?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to emphasize this. So anyway, Sam.
Yes.
Did the theory hold up on second viewing?
Oh, it definitely did. I didn't see any holes. I mean, my initial, like, not hesitation, but my initial hole I was going to try and poke in the theory is I almost got it seemed like they were trying to force a romantic thing at first, but on the second watch through, that doesn't seem to be the case at all. You know, there's the scene in the airport when he grabs her and stuff, but that's just more like I think he's figuring it out, you know, when he's standing there and looking at her.
Nathan, what's the first thing that you hear Grace say in this movie? Do you remember the line?
No.
She says, "Oh, I reminded you of someone else." She did remind him of someone else.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's the reaction
Marie
that
looks
she
exactly
reads
like-
is the exact right reaction. She reminds him of two people. Marie, because she looks just like her.
Yeah.
Right?
And himself.
And the daughter he gave up. To go become part of to follow the choice, right? He could never be the parent once that choice was presented, right? So that's the first. So it's an absolutely accurate line with it. But anyway, so you were saying from that moment, that
was where I was really like I wanted to see if the theory broke apart, but it didn't. And then there's one scene that seemed to really drive it home. Nathan pointed this out, and I think you came to the same conclusion, Dad, but you weren't able to share it. Is the whole car chase where Grace is driving, and Tom Cruise is really just being like a dad trying to teach their kid how to drive. Granted, it's a little bit different because they're trying not to die, but it has that same feel. He's like, "No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Turn left. Turn left. Turn. Okay, we'll do it again. Turn left.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's very much
over. He goes over and tries to grab the steering wheel. She's like, "Who's driving here?"
Right. Yeah. No, it very much feels like a dad and their kid. So it's pretty interesting to see those parallels.
What about your thoughts on that, Nate?
No, definitely. I think
did it hold up?
No, for sure. Even the third viewing, it held up.
What are some other things that you saw in the movie that seemed to indicate that that's what the relationship is?
I don't know. I'd like to say the necklace is the same one that Marie was wearing, but that's just not enough proof on that yet. Looks similar, but we'll come back to the necklace in a second, that much. Right. But even at the end, when Ethan crashes into the train and she reaches down, she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Are you okay?" And then he asks again, "Are you okay?" And she's like,
"It's
no."
like a dad with his child. He is every interaction that they have only makes sense in the father-child relationship. And then there's the scene after Ilsa's death. And
rest in peace, Ilsa.
I don't think she's dead. She ain't dead. But anyway,
nobody can die in this series.
No. So he says to her, he says to Grace, even we don't even know her name. Do you guys realize we don't know her real name?
She says just you can call
What's
her
your name? Well, what if she would have said her name, her given name?
Right.
He would have known immediately in that moment based on that, right?
But I mean, that's a little weird because
let's just say
everybody calls her Grace.
You can call me Grace.
Everybody calls her Grace.
Because that's what she's introduced as.
Because
even White Widow, I think
even White Widow does. Even Gabriel does.
That's fair. But when they're having that conversation, he says, "Your life will always mean more to me than my own." Now that. Honestly, come on. If this is some girl he's met 24 hours earlier in an airport, that line feels very insincere and disingenuous. There's no reason for that line. unless that's his daughter.
Right.
If that's his daughter, then the emotional weight behind that, the way it was delivered,
right, it's crazy
by Ethan makes perfect sense. And all of the decision that I have to get on that train. I'm going to get on that train.
I will be on that train.
I will be on that
no
train.
Matter
I
what.
promise I will be on that train. Is a father to a daughter, because he knows. See, and the moment that he finds out is the moment from when she leaves Abu Dhabi to fly to Rome, and we see it when she enters into the library to meet her lawyer, and he's pretending to be the lawyer, and he plops down her file on the desk and suddenly knows everything about her. Knows she's an orphan, knows her background. He's not going to reveal himself and herself because it's not in her best interest for him to reveal it.
Because then that would change her motives.
Well, everything changes in that moment. But he knows that's his daughter. At that point forward. And so from that point forward, you see that in every interaction. And the way she reacts is you see someone that is an orphan that doesn't understand why she can trust Ethan, why Ethan is making all these promises to her. And that's why when he says, your life will always mean more to me than my own, she says, you don't even know me. And he says,
what difference does that make?
What difference does that make? As a father, he doesn't know her.
Yeah, he didn't.
And what difference does that make? It's his daughter. At that point, it makes perfect sense.
It does.
All right. So we get out of the movie theater. And by the way, I've shared this I've had people messaging us or messaging on Twitter asking about this movie because of some things I'd mentioned. I had a theory, mentioned some Easter eggs. They had asked about it and all this kind of stuff. And I've been over the last 3-4 days since the movie hit the theaters, officially released, interacting with lots of people that are asking us about it. And all I have to ask, they're like, I can't figure it out. There's something there. And they'll always say it. There's something there about Grace. That's what they'll end up saying almost every time. I had one person say, I think the necklace that Marie and Grace are wearing is the same necklace. Somebody else said that.
So somebody else sees
Absolutely. And I said, so every single time I've said, they've reached out and they want to know what the theory is. All I ask them is this. Why is Ethan so devoted to Grace so quickly? And within minutes, they all reply, oh my God, is she his daughter?
Yeah.
Because it makes perfect sense.
It makes everything click.
All right. So we're pulling out of the theater the second night, right? And I throw up a tweet.
And I'm falling asleep at this point.
He's falling asleep in the back seat because it's late. It's like 11 o'clock that night.
It was.
I tweet out
on a Monday.
On a Monday night. Yeah. I say tweet out, just wow. There is a huge secret hidden in plain sight all throughout Mission Impossible 7. When you know it, it's staring you in the face. It's confirmed with one single Easter egg and it changes everything. And then I tag Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie and say, well done, Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie. Best Mission Impossible yet. And I move on. Right? I mean, how many times have I tagged actors and directors and writers and people on social media like 20 times a day, and I don't get any reactions whatsoever. And so about 20 minutes later, I'm just scrolling through Twitter and I see a message notification on Twitter DMs. And it's one of those, you have a new message request, which if you're not a Twitter person, that means it's somebody you're not connected to. I didn't even know we weren't following him, Chris McQuarrie. Anyway.
Wow. Fake fan.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so, I see this message request and I open it up and it says Christopher McQuarrie. And I'm like, sure, it's Christopher McQuarrie.
Totally.
Right. Then I click on it and he's following like 3 people and being followed by 150,000 people. And I'm looking at the people that like common mutuals that follow. And I'm like, these are all like press people and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is really freaking Christopher McQuarrie.
Right.
And I get a 1-sentence DM. This is, again, 20 minutes after I tweet this thing out.
Right.
20 minutes later, I get a DM from Christopher McQuarrie. Now, I don't know where Christopher McQuarrie really is in this moment, but I just know that was the evening. It was just after the New York red carpet premiere that night.
So he's either at an after party
or he's just
right
decided to go back to his hotel and be like, I'm not going to the after party, which is probably likely.
Understood. Honestly.
Absolutely. So anyway, it's right there. It says, to what Easter egg are you referring?
Now I'm freaking out at this point.
I am totally losing
because credibility is on me at this point, because I was the one that was like, oh, it's the necklace, which was the Easter egg you were referring to at this point.
Yep.
And so I'm like, if I'm wrong, this is gonna suck because I'm wrong. And we were so confident because I was really confident. I'm like, it looks the same. And so it's all like, I feel so bad if I messed that up. But
so I'm looking right here at the thread right now, and it's so cool to see the tweet. And then after his DM, it says, you accepted the request. It's because it feels like I accepted the mission, right? You okay over there?
I'm good.
He's laughing. It's causing lung problems with it.
Stop laughing.
I reply, and I'm like, Marie and Grace are wearing the same necklace. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Right? And then 2 minutes later, this is like 2 minutes. I reply to him 2 minutes after he sends it. And then 2 minutes after this is just unbelievable. But anyway, he says, I thought for sure you'd found something else. No one else has yet.
Heart drops.
And I'm
point.
like, no.
We got to go back to see it again.
So we're like, but then we begin this conversation that lasts, for a while that night, continues again the next morning, where I'm sharing this theory about Grace being the daughter of Ethan and Marie, and the necklace being the common tie-in and the Easter egg with it. It's so funny, the non-denial denial. I reply with your life will always matter more to me than my own, and then the quote, you don't even know me, and what's that? What does that matter?
Yeah,
what's that? And he replies, that's an interesting take. I'm always fascinated to see what people read into the narrative with that, which is not a denial, guys.
And he's like, dang it, that's a good idea.
Yeah, he's going to do it. And we have to give us a producer credit, right? No, I'm kidding. So anyway, no,
just red carpet tickets. That's all we asked.
That's all we asked for.
So then he replies a minute after that, and he says, as for the Easter egg I'm thinking of, it is very much in plain sight. So that's the way that it ends that night. Well, actually, I replied right away. I said, that reminds me of the non-denial line from All the President's Men, and said, so if I'm the first to uncover it, you have to come on the podcast at some point down the road to talk about it. This is your mission should you choose to accept it. He didn't actually accept that. He didn't accept that. But anyway,
no reason to.
So that was the way that it ended that day, that night, right? So the next night, Nate, so immediately we get home and I'm like, we got to see this again, Nate.
Right.
Sam, you're like, I'm exhausted and I've got work at 7 a.m, right? So he's like, no, I'm gonna have to bow out on this.
Check on that. He didn't enjoy
so we get IMAX tickets again, Nathan and I, for the next night. As we're sitting in the seats, I sent him a GIF image of me drinking my soda at the movie theater, and I say, seated for another showing, any clue to guide me on this mission, right? Mm-hmm. And then the movie starts.
And we watched the movie intently.
We are watching
so much more intense.
Here's what we start to realize before we watch it the third time. My original tweet that he responded to said, hidden in plain sight, right? Staring you in the face, right?
Right.
Those two lines match up with his. It's the Easter egg is very much hidden in plain sight. Right. So we're sitting there watching the movie. Nate has to go to the bathroom. I mean, we've already seen it twice, so it's easy to find a spot to go to the restroom, right? So the car chase, right?
Right.
Is
the best place to go.
If you've already seen the car chase twice, you can do that, right? So he gets up
and you come back and you're like, oh, nothing's really happened because it's such a long car chase.
Right. So but while he's gone, I feel my phone buzz. So I reach down and I look at it, and Chris has messaged me again. He says,
Chris, we're on a first name basis now, apparently.
Yeah, well, that's the way it is, me and Chris. I say, he replies and he says, keep your eyes peeled. Another eye
come on
nudge towards this. And then he says, bonus, my director cameo is very hard to spot.
It was.
Okay, so I think we found that. That's the first thing we'll go
I'm going to make
into.
sure next time I see it.
You're going to see it tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night. I'm going to make sure that I'm
When
paying
do we
attention.
think, Nate, that the director cameo is?
So right after Grace starts running away, after the two goons confront her in the hallway after the meeting scene with the White Widow, and then Ethan goes to help her, she pushes the goons onto him. He takes down the goons and looks across the way to see Grace running away. And then he looks down to all the people and sees the two agents that have been following him the entire time looking up at him. And then the camera pans out, and you see one guy in the crowd that looks a lot like Christopher McQuarrie. At least the hair did, because I didn't see it all that much the first time you pointed it out, and then it cut pretty quick. But I saw the hair, and I was like, "That
is Christopher McQuarrie hair.
That's his hair."
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna confirm it tomorrow night. But that's when it is, right there.
Which we replied to that. He didn't acknowledge. He did not acknowledge or deny. He did not deny or confirm any of these with this, which I don't blame him. He doesn't need to confirm or deny any of these. But he's also, up until a point, he always pointed us in different directions, and then then he'd stop responding to certain things. I think the non-denial denial type stuff is what's working. So then afterwards, so we're watching this movie, and there are so many references. There's so many eye-driven.
I mean, even
things.
the entities thing looks like
Looks like the Eye
an
of Sauron. I was watching it that third time. I'm like, this acts exactly like the Eye of Sauron.
So we're seeing eyes in everything. We're watching Grace when she's portraying the White Widow in the mask, and she's got brown eyes, and then the White Widow has blue eyes, and so we're trying to figure it all out. So I reply, and I'm like, I reply to the keep your eyes peeled that night, and I say, we picked up on that after last night, that it's about eyes. They're all over the movie, references and phrases and shots on eyes. The entity looks like an eye when shifting to look around. When Grace is portraying Alana, her eye color is always brown. Alana's eyes are bright blue. We picked up on that last night as well. We're just struggling to connect it all together as an Easter egg, right? And so that's the way I leave it, right? Mm-hmm. Until the next morning, and he messages us again. He's like, it's not nearly that complex. A very simple Easter egg hidden in plain sight. So there he is again. It's a sight connection with it. And then he says only one person on Instagram has commented on it. Thank you. And then I had also sent him a message thanking him for just the surreal 24 hours of interacting with him and watching this movie and having this like mini little mission of doing this
right
and having fun with it. I'm like, you didn't have to. I said basically, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to respond and keep responding. I said thank you. This is the kind of stuff that makes doing podcasts with my sons so absolutely surreal and fun.
It's crazy.
These types of moments happen, and we're like, what in the world? So thank you.
We
for
were
giving
put on a
us one.
scavenger hunt by the director of Mission Impossible for Mission Impossible. It's crazy.
So then the next morning, I saw somebody on a review, like it was on Deadline or something like that, talking about, at the beginning, and obviously if you haven't seen the movie, you're spoiled completely. So anyway,
by this point, yeah.
But when Ilsa's shooting the sniper rifle, she keeps putting that eye patch over her eye to do it,
which I just thought was cool.
It is, and that's all I thought too. But then I read an interview or something where they talk about she can't wink, like she can't hold one eye closed. Right. And so they had to create the eye patch for that. So I reply, I'm like, it's the eye patch, right? And within later that morning, like I guess it was almost 5 hours later, I get this one word, nope.
That's the first denial we've gotten.
I'm like, And so that was the last interaction from him.
Crazy experience, though.
Let's just talk about the experience. What were your thoughts on just the whole thing?
It's
crazy.
It's wild to think that he would do that. I mean, he, like you said, he didn't have to do that. He especially didn't have to keep going on about it. It's also smart on his part because more people go see the movie that way, because you're going to end up seeing it 4 times now because of that. It didn't bump the numbers too much, but you get my point. But it is cool. He didn't have to do that. It made the experience different for us and special.
It was more intense the third time watching it than the first.
Just because you were so focused.
Yeah. It was so...
It's really cool. It's going to change the way you watch the movie from now on too, because you know, you're going to remember that interaction. You're always going to be looking for whatever is that hidden detail. So it was pretty cool that he did that. But Nate, to keep it simple tomorrow, because he says it's very out in the open.
Oh, I think I know what it is. We'll talk about it in a second.
I think it's just the claustrophobic camera angles. I don't know what it is, but no, it was such an awesome experience. It's still an awesome experience. I'm going to watch this movie trying to find Easter eggs still, and I'm sure I will for the rest of time, and I can't wait
until part 2.
Until part 2, whenever that comes out.
When it's confirmed that you know that there's articles coming out today, interviews with Haley Atwell, where they're focusing in on Grace's backstory.
I haven't read it in the article.
They're like, you know, and she talks about being an orphan, and she talks about the relationship with Ethan. Not that they mentioned anything about them being connected, but this is the stuff that's coming out a week later.
I'm sure she's struggling trying to keep it under wraps.
I guarantee you, it's right. I'm right on that.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So should we say what I think it is?
You're more than welcome to.
I think I figured it out.
It's far-fetched.
It's not,
in my opinion.
It actually fits perfectly because it's simple. It has to do with eyes, and it's the kind of thing that, based on the relationship that Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise have,
which they basically worked on everything together since Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, so I think it makes perfect sense. So there's this rumor that was floating around during filming of Mission Impossible 7 that Tom Cruise would not allow any crew or anybody on this film to look him in the eye regarding anything. So much so that because the rumor is he's crazy, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay, the Scientology stuff and all of that. So there's this rumor that, you know, there's always been really weird rumors about him. And those came out even more during the filming of this movie because of COVID and the restrictions and, you know, the limitations that he wanted on the broadcast because of COVID. And you know, and he's the producer and the star of the show. He can do what he needs to with that, right? With it. But that's
no movie without him.
Exactly. So that's the rumor, right, that was out there. There's the scene, and when we were watching it the third time, I commented on this line at that moment, and it clicked the next day. There's the line where Luther is talking to Ethan about he can't go off script, right? He can't kill Gabriel. He can't, you know, do any of this kind of stuff. And Ethan keeps promising, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And Luther says, well, what are you going to do when he looks you in the eye? And I'm like, that's the kind of little Easter egg that
I don't think so. Because his initial DM to you is referring to the Easter egg that confirms the connection between Ethan and Grace.
But both, it doesn't confirm that. I never in there said that there was a connection between Grace. No, the original tweet that started all of this says there's a huge secret hidden in plain sight all throughout Mission Impossible. When you know it, it's staring you in the face. Both of those fit perfectly with that line from Luther that says, what are you going to do when he's looking you in the eye?
Yeah.
With that. And I think that makes sense. Now, I sent that to him, and he's not responded.
Have you found anything on Instagram commenting about that? Because he said...
No, I didn't look on Instagram because I wanted either he's going to confirm or it's going to be my headcanon until that goes against it.
Right. So. It's a fun idea. We'll see.
I'm right. We'll see. All that. But there's a theme that runs through this. Let's talk about it. You know, we can just talk about it. We don't have to have a scripted soliloquy from me. But let's talk about it for the dad moment today.
I am your father.
So the most common thing, it starts as the first thing with Ethan. The first time we see him in this entire movie is with the new recruit comes to him, and he cites the creed or the code or whatever, the mantra,
the oath.
That's what it was, and basically says, welcome to the Impossible Mission Force. And the guy's leaving, and he says, you made the right choice. Choices is a theme it's all throughout that. You know, real quick, just what are some of the moments when you remember choices being commonly tied into in this movie?
Well, I mean, the big thing with Grace at the end and the whole I choose to accept her being a part of the IMF. Of course, Benji and Luther also both going through the same thing. It's a big deal in this movie. It's a big deal for the IMF, and it's a big deal for Ethan. That's what got him into this position. That's why he's been in the IMF for, I think they said 30 years at this point. So I mean, choices is huge for everything. But then we go to Ilsa and Grace as a choice to who is going to die that night. And that's a big choice as well.
Which the choice doesn't feel nearly as impressive if it's not his daughter and a woman that he loves.
Right.
So anyway, Sam.
Yeah, Nate stole mine.
Sorry.
Those were the two I was going to do.
Sorry.
And he stole them in order of when I was going to do them.
Yeah, I mean, it's all throughout. So when you watch this movie, if you watch it a second, third, fourth time, whatever, go watch it as many times as you can because it's that good. But the thing that I think is the most important thing to take from this is it feels like in the way that the IMF positions that choice that you don't have a choice. Did you notice that? Like what's because Ethan, it's like you're going to go to prison, you're going to die,
or you get to join the IMF,
or you get to join the IMF, and that's the way that Grace is interpreting the choice when it's presented to her by Ethan when she's in the room with Luther and Benji and Ethan, right? Like, what's the choice?
Right.
And that's when you hear from Benji and Luther, no, we chose this life. This is we love what we do. You know, and so
we want to do this.
So nobody's forcing us to.
Nobody's forcing us to do this. And I think that that's an interesting thing because it feels in the moment for Grace like she doesn't have a real choice in this. But on the other side of making that choice, you know, decades later for these guys, they've come to terms with the choice that they made and they love their life. And I think that that's a situation that we can learn from, you know, as in our real world, right? The mythology that speaks to the story written on our hearts is this idea of there are moments where our backs are against the wall and we don't feel like we have a choice. And we feel like there's only one thing that we can choose, which is the choice in this thing. But if we accept the mission, accept the choice, right? And then embrace what comes from it, we won't, you know, we can live a life that's actually full and fulfilling and not live with regret. The problem is when we keep looking back at that choice with regret with it. I used to ask people all the time. I've got it, you know, one of my favorite poem of all time is the Road Less Traveled by Robert Frost, Two Roads Diverged in Yellowwood, that one with it. And it says at the end, the last stanza is, I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And I used to ask people this all the time because I get into these conversations with people and I would say, what's a moment you look back? We used to ask this on interviews on the podcast. We did here. Where's a moment you look back on your life and you realize you had one of two clear paths that you could go down and you made a choice? What was that decision and what choice did you make? And I've had lots of people ask that. I've never had anybody, when I ask the next question, answer differently. They've always answered the same way. I'm asking, if you could go back to that moment and make the other choice, go the other direction, but you would lose all the bad and all the good that's come since you made that choice, would you make a different choice? I have never had anybody tell me that they would make the other choice with that. And so I think that that's kind of the lesson that we can take from that. So that's the dad moment.
Very good.
That's it. That's it. That's the end of the episode.
That was fun. Longer than I
about
expected.
45. We've actually been going about 45 minutes most episodes lately. So.
Okay, cool.
It's a good conversation.
Good.
I hope
It's
had
fun.
I had fun. Did you guys have fun?
Yeah.
I hope that you guys
What's our
had
next
fun.
one going to be about?
Oppenheimer.
Ooh,
Yeah.
We are a Team Oppenheimer show, by the way.
for sure.
We are not going to go see Barbie. We have no interest. I had a conversation today with a film editor for one of the major trade magazines, and she's seen Barbie, and I asked her what she thought about Barbie. She's going to Oppenheimer.
Please ask her what she thinks about Oppenheimer.
She's going to send me a review tomorrow.
Okay, good.
She said. But I asked her what
what's
she
the
thought
date?
about Barbie.
Okay.
And she said,
I think
it was really weird. And then she says, I think I liked it. I think I liked it.
That's kind of how I was after Willow, the original premiere of it. I was like, I think I liked it.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Simmer.
We'll talk about
We'll see.
Oppenheimer
I can't wait for Oppenheimer.
on the next one in IMAX, as we should. Right?
obviously.
Will we see it multiple times?
I have a feeling. Yeah,
I'm sure
I have a feeling.
I'm sure you will, Nate.
With that, but we'll talk about that next week. In the meantime, you can make sure you follow us on all the socials. What is our handle on that?
At Tatooine Sons. SONS.
They've been doing this for
That was
a
a
while.
little scary.
That was good. SONS. You can follow us on, you can check out our website, TatooineSons.com. Make sure you're following everybody on the Christian Nerd HQ.
Yes.
Ricky Pope from Christian Nerds Unite comes out on Monday. We come out on Tuesday. Fangirling over Jesus on Wednesdays with Ashley Cox. Thursdays is the Reverend of the Reprobate. We talked about them a lot at the opening of the show. And then Fridays is Speaking Nerdy. So have fun with that. And be kind to each other on that social media stuff out there, because sometimes we need to be nicer to people. So I'll say that, and we'll close with that. Anything else you guys want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Join, please.